Hello class, and welcome to Notes 4.2, Scientific Notation. California Standard for today is NS 1.1. And our objective is to read and write numbers in scientific notation. Our only vocab word is scientific notation itself, which is a number written in the form C times 10 to the n, where 1 is less than C or equal to C. C is less than or equal to 10, and n is an integer. So, what that means is you're choosing a number between 1 and 9 is going to represent your C, and n is going to be an integer, so it won't be a fraction or a decimal. It'll either be a whole number or its opposite. Okay, let's look at the first teacher example. A flash of lightning consists of 3 or 4 strokes. This time, the time between each stroke is without, and notice you've got your zeros, and if you count over, you have tenths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, or 100,000s, excuse me, 10,000s, 100,000s. So 500,000ths of a second. Write this number in scientific notation. So first we have it in standard form, which, as we talked about in the last video, it's the same thing as saying writing it in decimal form. Now, what we want to do is remember that first digit, that C, needed to be a number between 1 and 9. So, what that means is we need to move the decimal so that we can have the 5 in front of the decimal point, because the number 5 is a number between 1 and 9. So, we move the decimal 5 places to the right, and we now have product form. So I've moved the decimal, and if I multiplied these two numbers together, I'll be back at my original number. Now that I've done this and taken the 5 out of the equation, I can take a look at this other number here, the one in the 100,000th, or the 100,000th place, and I can turn that into a power of 10, just like we did in the last video. So if I count the zeros, I notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. So that would be 10 to the 5th. And since the decimal is in front, I know that I'm going to have an exponent of negative 5. So scientific notation would be 5, that's your number between 1 and 10, times 10 to the negative 5th. Okay, let's take a look at this one now going the opposite direction. We have the maximum distance from Earth to Jupiter is 968,100,000 kilometers. What is the distance written in scientific notation? Now with these numbers, they're such large numbers in science oftentimes, they turn it into scientific notation so that they can be working with easier numbers. So we take a look at standard form, and we notice we want a number that's between 1 and 10. So the largest it can be is 9.999999. And here we can see we've got the 9 as our first number. So we need to move that decimal point until it's directly behind the 9. So if I move it 8 places to the left, it ends up right between the 9 and the 6. And I have my decimal point here. And then obviously multiplied by this number here, 100 million, it would be back to my original number. So now I can take my 100 million and I can turn it into a power of 10. If you count the zeros, you notice there's 8 zeros, so it's 10 to the 8th power. Notice it's positive because it didn't have that decimal in it in the original number. Notice we have put the decimal in the number now. So we can put them both together, and we have 9 and 681 thousandths times 10 to the 8th. And of course, since this... Okay, let's go ahead and have you try some of these out on your own. Write the number in scientific notation. Notice the first two are going to be positive powers of 10. The third one, you're going to have that negative power of 10. You can tell that right away because you have that decimal in front. Okay, so go ahead, try them out, press play when you're ready to see your answers. Let's start with number 1. We want the 9 to be the only digit in front of the decimal, which means we need to move the decimal 3 places. And we end up here with 9 times 1,000, which would be 10 to the 3rd. Number 2, we need to move the decimal 5 places so that the 2 is the digit in front. Because remember, we want the number to be between 1 and 10. So the highest it can be is 9.999999999. So we move the decimal 5 places. 2 and 53 hundredths times 100,000. We end up with 2 and 53 hundredths times 10 to the 5th, because it does have those 5 zeros. Notice as you start getting good at this, you can actually skip this second step here and go directly to this step here, because you know you're moving your decimal 5 places, so you know your exponent is going to be 5. Okay, now again we want the number between 1 and 10, so I need to move my decimal so it's in between the 1 and the 2. So when I count my places over, I'll notice I've moved it 6 places backwards. So now I have 10 to the negative 6, because that original number had that decimal in front. Okay, let's go ahead and go to teacher example 3, scientific notation, and you're going to turn it into standard form. So now we're doing the opposite. Okay, so we take a look. We've got 10 to the 7th. Notice it's a positive 7, which means I'm going to be making my number larger. So I'm going to be moving my decimal 7 places, and I'm going to move it to the right so the number gets larger. Okay, so here notice I've got my 7 zeros, and I'm moving my decimal 7 places to the right, and I end up with 31 million. So all I'm doing to turn from scientific notation into standard form is I'm looking at this power of 10, whatever the exponent is, that tells me move the decimal 7 places. And here I'm moving it to the right because I want it to become a larger number. And of course, if you look at B, I'm sure you've already guessed, we are going to move it to the left because it has that negative sign. That means we want the decimal way out in front. So move it 4 places to the left, and I end up way out here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and have you try that out. Write the number in standard form. Again, be careful on number 6, because it's got a negative exponent, you're moving it the opposite direction. Okay, let's take a look and see how you did. Number 4, you're only moving the decimal 2 places to the right. 820. Number 5, you're going to move the decimal 10 places to the right. 55,100,000,000. And number 6, again, we've got that negative exponent, so that means I'm going to move my decimal 9 places to the left. And if I count, I should have 9 zeros, including the one in front. And that tells you you moved it the right direction. Okay, hopefully you did all right on those. Why don't you go try out our quiz for today? Write the number in scientific notation as the first one. So you're going to have a number times 10 to a power. Number 2, write the number in standard form. So you're just going to have a nice big number. Make sure you use commas if necessary. And number 3, write the number in standard form. And on this one, you want to be careful because it has that negative exponent, so you know you're moving it to the left. Okay, have a great day.